Right, as you move up to the top bank of Sandhurst, you'll come to number 18, and then you'll come to number 19. Now number 19 is one of my favourite swims on the lake. It's not all that often fished, but you've got like a really good depth of water out in front of this swim. You've got the deepest point of the lake just off to your right, probably about 20 yards out, where you're going down to about 9.5 feet, something like that. Most of the fishing out in front of this swim is probably 20-30 yards out. You can end up going too far out of this one, so quite often you see the fish jumping, and the fish are jumping literally anything between 10 yards and 20 yards, 30 yards out, something like that. It's a real good feeding area. You've got the deep bowl directly out in front of you, and then it basically runs from the swim down to the left hand corner, to the left of the secret as you look at it. So if you imagine out in front of here, up to about 35 yards out, is the deep bowl, and then a big trench running up the lake. But it's one I've quite often seen fish boshing when I've been along the road bank, moved in there, flipped out a couple of maize stack of rigs where the fish have been showing, and caught within an hour. As you moved up to the left, you've got swim number 20. Once again, it's got like a pretty decent amount of deepish water off to the right, probably about 6.5, 7 foot, something like that. But down to the left of it is a little bit shallow. I've not really done that much time in there, but it's a good plot. In the corner, you've got like a nice couple of like lovely stalking swims, like these bushes to the right and to the left. The fish get right into like in the warmer months, and you can catch them like right in the edge. Good old swims. I mean, you've probably got about 4.5 foot out in front of you there, but like nice quiet corner, that one. This one, number 22, again, it's very rarely fished. This bush down to the right here, you've probably got about 4.5 foot of water. So yeah, worth a chance. Now, one of the most famous swims on the lake, and probably my favourite swim, is the bailiff swim. You can command a good area of water here. Once again, you're fishing out to the main trench that runs from right to left up the lake. So, I mean, the trench is probably about 50 yards out. I quite often see people whacking across like 60 odd yards, and you're going back onto the shallower water. So where you want to be here is about 40, 45, 50 yards, something like that. I usually fish one at the poplar tree there, and then one to the left and one to the right, so you can see where the lead landed, and that's probably about 50 yards out, something like that. When it's nice and calm, the fish will show you where the trench is, because you'll see light bubbling going right through the swim. Once again, you don't want to go too far out of this swim. If you go too far, past halfway, you start interfering with the people that are fishing on the other side. So once again, as a general rule of thumb in this swim, you want to be going halfway, so it's like 50 yards max, something like that. But that's a good distance. Also, you've got like a nice area of like deeper water just off to the right. Now to the left, you've got the left-hand bailiff swim. You've got a fair bit of shallow water out in front of you here, but it's always worthwhile putting one up left to the channel, close in, because the fish do get in there, especially when it gets busy. You know, so always worth having a quiet rod off to the left. You want to be going like slightly right out of this swim, probably about 40 yards out, something like that. You don't want to be going too far out of this one, because you'll start encroaching on the island swim water. The island swim's pretty good, a lot of shallow water out in front of it, but then there's a couple of nice deeper spots as well. So it's not a swim I've fished all that much, but yeah, pretty decent. Up to the left, you've got number 28. And number 29. Now once again, these are like pretty close in swims. In front of number 28, you've got like, again, it's probably the shallowest water on the lake, 3.5, 4 foot, something like that. But when the lake gets pressured, the fish come into the bushes and the snags up to the left of these swims, and you'll see fish in the bushes there. So always worth a shout when it's banged out. This is number 29. Once again, in this one, you're fishing like a little bit more right and close in. The pipe swim is probably the most famous swim on the lake. Again, this one you're fishing probably about 80 yards away, and you're fishing to the same feature as you're fishing from number 10 and the car park swim. but you're fishing like a different part of it, another extension of it. So essentially what you're going to be doing is looking between number 10 and number 9. So as you look at number 9 swim on the opposite bank, you're fishing one to the left of it and one to the right of it, and that's a recognised pipe spot. Again, it's a deep silty depression that's out there, and once again, if the wind's blowing up this end, the fish can be out there en masse, and there's been some awesome hauls out of the pipe. It's not one that I fished a great deal. I've had a few fish out of there, but it's like one of the busier swims on the lake, but under the right circumstances it's very good. Also pays to fish one off to the left towards number 6, probably about 40 yards out, something like that. There's like a nice deep silty depression out there, which is a good spot. The fish can sometimes be like that little bit more left in this swim, so instead of being off to the right in the recognised pipe spot, they'll be that little bit further along. You don't want to be going too far left out of this swim, because once again you'll start encroaching on the car park swim water and the secret swims water. The secret swim is a pretty decent swim, especially in the spring. Off to the right of it you've got some extremely shallow water, but down to the right on the close in margin you've got like a nice depth of water there. Essentially out in front of it it's like a deeper channel running diagonally up the lake towards the other corner, the top left hand corner there as you look out of the swim. Maximum distance you want to go out here is probably about 80 yards. Again, you don't want to go too far because you'll be going, number one, you'll start encroaching on the pipe swim's water, and also if you go too far left and a bit too far out, you start encroaching on swim number 4, the car park swim's water. But again, it's another one that it always pays to fish one close in this swim. You don't want to go too close to that right hand margin because it's like deathly shallow. You want to be at least like 3 or 4 rod lengths off it. They do get along there in the warmer months. But I've caught a fair few fish like zigging out of here, you know, because they come into the shallow areas once the old weather warms up. But you see them moving close in, probably a rod length out from the left, from the car park swim side, and they move out in front of the swim. So I think it always, like I say, it always pays to fish one close in there. Number 2, again, it's kind of like a closer in swim. You've got like a deeper area, a couple of like deeper depressions, just slightly left out of the swim. And if you go just slightly right, probably about 40 yards out, you're picking up like that deeper channel that you've got extending out from the secret swim up to your right. So I don't tend to kind of like fish all that far out of here. Sometimes the fish can be in here, you know, it's one to just kind of like sneak into. But it's like a fair bit of conflict with the car park swim. So quite often, if there's someone in the car park swim, this one gets left alone, purely because if one or the other gets into a fish, you're going to have problems tangling up the other person's line. It's one like, say people are having a social, they'll have a social in the secret, number 2, and the car park swim, because they'll come to an agreement that you know, it's okay. But it's like quite a nice one. I've had a couple of fish out of here, probably about, like I say, 30, 40 yards out, something like that. So it's a nice one to drop into if you're having a little social. So yeah, Sandhurst is a good place to go and fish. I mean, I really enjoy my fishing on there. It can get busy sometimes, but if you've got the fish out in front of you, you still stand a chance. I mean, it's one of those waters that fishes in the colder months. If you get like a slight change in the weather, for example, it will freeze, but then 2 days after it's defrosted, the fish will be catchable and you'd see fish boshing and stuff like that. And I don't think that can be said for a lot of waters. So yeah, I enjoy my fishing on there, especially in the winter when it's got a little bit quieter, and I shall definitely be going over there this winter. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my little Sandhurst walk round. I've tried to be as informative as possible, and I hope I've given you a few pointers. So at least if you ever fish, if you ever fancy fishing Sandhurst, you've got like something to go on, so it's not going to be a surprise when you get there. All the bailiffs will be more than happy to like give you a hand, telling you where the spots are and try and giving you a few pointers to help you out. Everything works at different times of the year. People ask me, you know, do they love the maggots or do they love the maize or the boilies? You know, everything works on Sandhurst. Sometimes in the winter, everybody uses the maggots, which is not to say that you won't catch them on a little white pop-up. Maize stacker rigs work on there, the boilies work in the various forms, bottom baits work, pop-ups work. So it always pays to come to Sandhurst with an open mind.